you're posting, you're speaking, you're doing everything they told you would grow your business. So why is it not converting? Because visibility is only half the equation. Getting attention is easy. Turning that attention into clients takes strategy. VoiceLab was built to solve that. This is where front-end visibility meets back-end conversion. You learn how to get on stages, create your own platforms, and use podcasts, summits, and workshops to grow your audience and generate real leads. Then you learn what most people never build. A system that captures those leads, follows up, nurtures relationships, and turns interest into revenue. Email and newsletter strategy that actually gets responses. Workflows, not just more noise. Real connection that leads to real business. Inside VoiceLab, you are not guessing. You're learning the how. You're implementing in real time. You're building a business that works even when you are not constantly chasing attention. Because here's the truth. If you don't have visibility, no one knows you exist. If you don't have systems, nothing converts. VoiceLab gives you both, so you can stop performing for attention and start building momentum that pays you back. If you are ready to grow your authority, expand your reach, and finally turn visibility into income, join Coleen Stubbs and Nicole Borghi in the VoiceLab. Scan the QR code, join VoiceLab Group on the school platform, and build the business that actually works.
Alrighty, good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning Business Foreplay. You can all turn your cameras back on. Good morning, good morning. How is everybody? Welcome to Monday Morning Business Foreplay. I'm excited today. I have Malcolm with us. And Malcolm, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Your topic was a little bit different than what I expected and what I've experienced. But nonetheless, very excited to be here with you and really dive into this. But first, before we get started, Malcolm, I would love it if you would tell us a little about you as a person so that you're more relatable to our audience. Maybe give us a little bit of history on you, what brought you into this part of your business.
Okay, so I am a human being and a person. I speak with words. I am very educated.
Oh my gosh, I love that word. I didn't know anybody else uses that word. I use that a lot.
Yes. No, I am, who am I? I'm an actor, a comedian. I am the stand-up CEO, and now I help businesses and entrepreneurs with the power of improv and laughter. I help them scale their businesses somehow. So with businesses, either small or large, or medium, I help them solve their people problems using this, and team building and employee engagement, things like that. And with entrepreneurs, I help them scale their business, i.e. sell better using improv and laughter.
Good. I'm excited to learn about this because I feel like laughter is really the thing that can de-escalate super quickly. It's also relatable, but what a great tool to be able to bring into our businesses, right? And then also into our relationships and all the things that we do. So with no further questions, I'm going to allow you to go ahead and take over, Malcolm, and teach us all the things we need to know about how sharing laughter and listening and saying yes can transform how we communicate, how we connect, and how we grow our business.
Great. Okay. Well, first, let's start with the relationship, since you brought that up as well. Laughter is connection. Laughter is connection. And that helps So with building a relationship, that's what business is all about. That's what our personal lives, that's what life is all about. Life is all about business. Our life is all about connections. And actually, let me go ahead and let me start by informing you and your listeners this. So I have a disability. I have it's a physical disability. It affects my brain and how my brain processes information. And sometimes frequently, I lose my words and ideas. And so when I do that, I might pause for a while. I might start moving around and dancing around and calling things like Marco Polo, Marco Polo. That's just to find my words. So my words come back. And so if that happens, this is exactly what's going on. So bear with me.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yes. So anyway, going back to relationships. And so business is all about relationships. And improv is all about relationships. And the thing with improv, and you opened up the show by noting this, is that this is not a usual topic for businesses. When they hear improv, when most people hear improv, they think theater, they think comedy, they think entertainment. And yes, that is where improv was born. And improv is used most often in the theater and in comedy. But the applications of improv, they are essential to business. These are the what you learn from improv, from applied improv. This is essential to sales, for instance. And what I'm going to talk mainly to entrepreneurs right now and focus on sales, because improv, like sales is all about the relationships and the people that you know, like, and trust are the people that you buy from. And with improv, that really helps with sales. The first way that it helps with sales, and most importantly, is it forces you, the salesperson, to listen, to be 100% present and listening. Oftentimes when we are in, I say we, but some people, oftentimes there are people that are listening to the other person just to find ways for them to speak. They're listening to respond. React. They're listening to react. They're listening to these objections to react to the objections. With improv, you are forced to listen, to respond. So the first thing that I learned with improv is a technique called yes and. And before I get into that, Coleen, I would like to go ahead and give you a little more of my background and how I came into improv, and then I'll go forward with how it helps with sales. So,
I would
as
love that. I think one of the things you just said that really resonated with me is I've been in those conversations, right? Where you hear people, I don't want to say you hear people listening. That doesn't, where you feel the vibe that they're listening, they're hanging on, looking for a place to either interject or a place to escalate themselves. And you can, so it's not listening, that's not what I mean, but you can feel it. Has everybody felt that? You felt that sometimes in conversations and you're like, why can't I have the floor for a minute, right? So I totally agree with what you're saying, and I feel like that really resonated. Yeah, please do continue. Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah. So I started as a stand-up comedian when I was in college, and when I first started comedy, this was so my going back. I started talking about my disability when I was a child, when I was 9 years old. That's when I had this virus called Reyes syndrome, and it attacked my brain cells and my liver cells. And essentially, I had to relearn how to walk and talk. And so fast forward, now I'm in college and I'm starting my stand-up career, my stand-up pursuit. And when I first started, I wanted to be perfect as a stand-up. I worked, I wrote all the time, I practiced all the time. And what was most important to me is that elusive comic timing. Everyone hears time, comedy is about timing. And so I had it in my mind. I was looking at all the other comics and they talk fast. And so at the time, I couldn't talk as fast as I'm talking right now. My brain, it couldn't process things as fast as as fast as it can right now. And so I was fighting who I was at the time to try and be what I thought a stand-up comedian should be. And lo and behold, it wasn't working. I was bombing. And then my inner bully, that voice that a lot of people have, we call it the uh, syndrome, imposter syndrome. You're not good enough. So that voice was saying, you can't do this, Malcolm. You're not good enough. You're not funny. You talk too slow. You should just quit. And eventually, Coleen, that's what I did. I ended up quitting comedy, and I got a job. I got a couple of jobs, but I wasn't happy. There was, I had something inside of me, wanted more. And a friend of mine suggested that there was an improv troupe that needed some box office help. So I volunteered for that. And that led to my taking improv classes. And with my improv classes, there was the very first basic concept is something called yes and. And I'm sure most of your listeners have heard about this. Yes and. That is a simple concept of yes, accepting whatever the offer is and building on that offer. So yes and was the very first concept that I learned. And now fast forward to my being an entrepreneur and sales and selling things, selling my service. Well, yes and concept, it works with sales objections as well, because yes, remember, yes is accepting whatever offer is given, whatever offer is given. A good offer, a bad, what we call a bad offer, right? Or like a sales objection. It costs too much. That's the offer. We're listening to that and we're building on it. So that's a concept that I learned in improv and I brought over to sales, and it is essential in sales. Why? Because when we use yes and, the person that we're talking to can recognize we're listening to them. We are collaborating with them. We are not just responding. We are just reacting. We're not just trying to sell something. We're actually trying to collaborate with them. And that establishes a better reaction from them. It establishes a better relationship, a stronger relationship. And this goes back to what I said before. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. And so this strengthens that relationship. So that's just the foundation of how improv helps with selling and handling sales objection. So now let's go back to my story of when I was taking improv classes. Another very important lesson I learned is that mistakes are gifts. Mistakes are gifts. I was in a scene where I was wanting to end the scene by saying, "Have a nice day." That was part of my brain. And then the other part of my brain was saying, "No, we'll end the scene by saying, 'See you.'" And so what ended coming out was, "Have a nice you." And then I froze. And that voice, that inner critic, that inner bully was coming back, and it was saying, "Look, Malcolm, see, you really messed up again. You messed up again. How dare you say something like that? Have a nice you. The audience doesn't know what that means." But my scene partner said, "Well, thank you. I've been working on myself recently. And it's good to see that someone recognizes it." And the audience started to chuckle. And so I built on that. Yes, and I built on that, and I said, "Well, that's great, because yes, I do recognize you are working on yourself, and I really like the you that you are becoming. You are a good you." And the audience cracked up, right? So here was a mistake that I made, that through the yes and, we were able to build on that. And so this led to the lesson that mistakes are gifts. think going back to business, bring it back to business. So think, a lot of us know the story of 3M, the 3M, where the scientist was trying to create the strong glue, but ended up creating only a glue that could barely stick some paper together for seconds, and that was a failure. That was a failure. He thought, I failed. Fast forward, there was another scientist in the same company that used that creation and built what we all know and use today, the Post-it notes. Mistakes are gifts that eventually can be used. Not every mistake will lead to a Post-it note invention, but mistakes can be used. Every mistake is a gift. Every mistake is a gift.
I love that, Malcolm. I'm just going to say I had a new you yesterday. I don't know if you find that punny, but I do, because it's the cutest you you've ever seen. Anyways, we raise sheep, so
Oh, I love
I
it.
knew you yesterday. I found that funny, but she's adorable.
That is funny. That is funny. Yes, thank you. Thank you for chiming in. Definitely. So we've got the yes and we've got mistakes or gifts. Another really, really important concept that I learned in that improv class that I bring over to sales, very important, is making your partner look good. So the whole thing about improv is to make your partner look good. There's a very simple warm-up game that we use. It's called word at a time story. Word at a time story. And basically, we are creating a story using one word at a time. And it works great in groups, but you can also do this solo as well. But right now I'm talking about working in a group. So the object is to create the most logical sentence. Okay, so for instance, if you and I, Coleen, were doing this and I would say once, you would say upon, I would say a, you would say time, right?
Right.
Okay, so we're giving the next logical word, and we're helping our partner that way, because if I say, if we go once upon, if I say a, hey, well, it's logical based on what I've heard before, I'm going to say time, right? And this concept, making your partner look good, it's crucial to the sales process. Okay, because when we are in that process, again, it's well, let me go back and say that people like us. So, Coleen, you like me based on how I make you feel about yourself when you're with me. Right?
Absolutely.
And so if I make you feel good, you're going to want to hang out with me. Right? If I make you laugh, I love the way that the way I feel when I'm with Malcolm. I want to be around Malcolm all the time. So you're with me all the time, right? Now let's take this to the sales process and that sales conversation that we're having. If we're making our client feel good, or our potential client, if we're making the person that we're talking to feel good in the conversation, they're going to want to stay in the conversation, right? And to take it a step further, if we make them feel good about themselves when they're with us, they're going to want to stay with us. They're going to want to stay with us for a long time. And as you know, I'm sure you know this, is that some people, it takes them 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 20 hits before they actually buy from you. So the longer they're with you, the more chance you have of making that sale.
Okay, Malcolm. So let's just say, I know this is going off what you're planning to say, but I just have a question about this. Let's say that I was a coach for somebody who's been traumatized, and so my goal is to make them feel safe.
Right.
Would that feeling safe be equivalent to the feeling good in this? And so what I should be doing in trying to get the sale or have them as a prospect is to be providing scenarios repeatedly where they feel safe, because that's the desired outcome they have, right? Is that how
So
that connection goes?
talking with someone, talk trauma. So if I understand what your question is, you are asking about how you would take these same concepts and create the psychological safety that that you would want to
That they're
create.
seeking, basically, right?
Yeah,
And
with them. Exactly.
so feel good is part, but that's very general. And so for me, I actually sell CRMs, and I sell the feeling of freedom, the feeling of simplicity, the feeling of control as opposed to chaos. And so every interaction that I have with my prospects my goal should be to provide an environment where they feel those things, and so that they're understanding when they work with me, they're going to feel more of that.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. Exactly. So yes, I was trying to speak generally so
Right.
people can use their specific topic, and and see how this fits. But you're exactly correct. Is you're creating this atmosphere where they know, like, and trust you. They have that feeling they want to stay with you. And
Right. Right. And so for Nicole's business is she's a summit and event planner. And
mhm,
so she wants people to feel seen and heard. And so that would be her safety net, her feeling she's trying to convey and share with them and mirror back to them while they're in the prospect position in her business. Um, Sarah, what would yours be? I can't hear you, Sarah.
Sorry.
There you are.
There I am. I'm just loving this conversation. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us about this. So to me, I'm not really sure. Am I able to say that?
No,
Well,
you can say that. I
midlife.
think when I go in your world,
Yeah.
I feel clarity, I feel support, and I feel unrushed. And so to me, that's a little bit more difficult to bring in, but I guess that's why I'm not the expert in it and Sarah is, right?
Well, it's true that I that's the ultimate goal. Thank you. Um, I want to say that it's the mentoring and getting the women to really show up for themselves and coming with whatever they are going through right then and there. So it's not always easy to put the finger on it, if you will.
Right. I would see that for sure, but I think that you do a good job of it, however you do it. Nicole, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. I love this conversation. I want to say thank you so much, Malcolm. I mean, my inner geekdom is all over the place and super thrilled. I was a drama student and a tech geek, and that absolutely is my thing. And I realize in your conversation how much it does have to do with the pivot and what we do and how we listen to our audience, right? Because it's fun. And when you're doing improv and you're mirroring and you're walking around following people or bouncing ideas off each other, it's kind of what we do in our light conversation, right? With our friends, is how much we do this, how much we kind of role play life into the conversation. And sometimes getting on camera in a Zoom meeting with someone or talking one to one in a coffee chat or a Starbucks, if you're networking, you kind of forget that you're still supposed to have that exchange. You're still supposed to have that loving, fun exchange, because if it's not fun, it's not worth doing, right? You want to keep the motivation, and I think people kind of freeze up. I notice that it's hard to get it. I would love to hear your thoughts on when you're having a conversation, whether it's a get to know you call or a sales conversation. I would love to know from you what do you do to kind of get people to provoke it, even hosts, like just, as watching other people as host, stage host, podcast host. They forget they're supposed to have an exchange and they're not supposed to interrogate their guest, right? And they kind of think they want to have that control, but I think what Coleen does in such a loving manner here and is so great in conversation is kind of guiding, but letting you have the stage and sharing your thoughts and ideas, so people can relate to you in business and maybe provoke you new unique thought. What do you do to kind of provoke a conversation with someone, instead of, hey, how you doing? Hope it's all well in this day and age of tech and AI. What do you do to kind of provoke calming conversation, to have fun with someone, to kind of really get them to talk to you?
Well, it all comes from listening with me personally. And listening comes from asking the right questions. So I start asking questions. The questions that you asked to were they're like very basic beginning questions that to make a person feel safe, to it's safe now to start talking, to respond to Malcolm at this point. So I would start by listening, asking those questions, and then really listening to their reactions. And this is another skill that improv really helps with. Listening to the entire answer, listening to the answer behind the answer. So again, to take it to the sales objections, listening to the objection behind the objection, listening to the body language, listening to everything. And when I listen to someone, then that gives me an idea of the type of atmosphere that they feel safe in, what they want, their pain points, what they want to solve, what makes them feel safe. And so it just builds from there. So it's listening, and then it's yes and essentially it's combining a lot of these skills that I've been talking about.
I love that. And I will say that a lot of times, well, in one of my networking things that I go to, they often ask, what's a super skill you have that people don't know or people don't notice? Or maybe they'll say, what's something that you notice that other people don't? And one of the things that I always say is listening to people's feelings. And I do that by listening to their reactions, not their words, not even so much just their movement, but the after effect of what they say in response to different things, the after effect they have after they say something. And so I feel like, yeah, absolutely. Listening to reactions is so much more encompassing than just listening to words or listening to a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carl, I
Exactly.
see you have a question.
Yeah, it's a question with a comment. Okay, I've been doing sales training for a long time, and everything you're saying is correct, by the way, in my opinion. I think that the asking questions, I mean, one of the biggest things I train is selling isn't telling, it's asking. And so you have to ask questions to find out, but it also gives you an opportunity to find out what their personality is so that you can better match yourself, because people they like to be seen like they are, not like you are, you know? So if you can match that, I believe you might agree with that. And then once you learn their personality, you try to match that personality the best you can without losing your own personality, and then move forward. But the other thing, and I made a note of it because when you were talking about objections, is something that I learned years ago was if you don't argue, if you don't disagree with somebody, they can't argue with you. So if you say, yes, I understand what you're saying, and then ask another question, you can overcome objections that way without being confrontational. So how do you feel about what I just said?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
I think we're going to call that the yes bridge, right?
Yeah, that's
Be the
kind of
yes
what
bridge.
I guess we'd call that. Yeah.
It is a bridge, and it's an important bridge that we have to cross if we want to go from prospect to client, right? And so the yes bridge, yes,
Yeah.
and
Well, being confrontational won't get you a sale, that's for sure.
absolutely.
You brought up something I wanted to chime on as well, Carl, is another thing in improv is status. That really helps us when we understand status and how to play with status. That helps in a conversation. So and when I say status, I don't mean always, high status meaning authoritative, and low status meaning you don't have any authority. You can be a low status and still be very, very authoritative. But it's just knowing that status and being able to change that status in the conversation. So for you, I can match, okay, I'm going to be higher status, just meaning that I know a little bit more about what I'm talking about. But now, I'm gonna give Carl some status, and I'm going to play lower status to that. And so that keeps the conversation going as well. Not only that, but going back to know, like, and trust, if you can feel, you might not know, you might not recognize that it's status game, but if you can feel that, and that I am actually there communicating with you and collaborating with you and allowing you to have more of a say, then that just creates the stronger trust in me and like in me, which of course in return is going to build that relationship that leads to more sales.
I love that, Malcolm. And I feel like when we bring into our relationships with our prospects, when we treat that as a collaboration to help them reach their goals, clearly, whatever that is, but to be a better them, to have a better system, to be more comfortable, whatever our service provides for them, to get better sales, to get more sales. When we take the position that we are collaborating with them to get them what they want, I think that that becomes much more personable, much more relatable, and much more relationship oriented, which is what we need to be nowadays, especially in the trust deficit that we're in right now. So I feel like listening, integrating what they're saying, mirroring that back and forth, validating their concerns, even with a simple yes. I understand where it could seem that way, but showing that we're really listening. I feel like a few years ago we were really going through a here's our product, let's sell it and get going. Here's our product, sell it, get going. Going through the clients, like looking for lots of sales instead of looking for relationship based sales with clients that we want to have lasting a long time, right? Because I don't want my clients to leave. I pride myself on the fact that they haven't. The ones that I have stuck around and I have a good relationship with them. And I value that more than I do the monetary that could come from flipping clients, for lack of a better word, right?
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, I want to ask if anybody has any questions before I dive into my questions. Does anybody have any questions for Malcolm? Malcolm, do you have a lead magnet or something that you can share with us?
I most certainly do. Yes.
Will you drop that in the chat for a minute?
I will.
Tell us about it.
I'll tell you about it. So, what I have to give away is I have the ability to walk and chew gum at the same time.
But can you rub your head and your tummy at the same time?
Now you're asking for a lot.
Because I cannot do that.
Yeah, I know. I can't either. That's wow. Wait. Yeah, I guess I can.
But your hands
Magic
aren't going the right
tricks.
way.
I can do it. I can do it. Magic tricks.
Oh. So, laughterisconnection.com. What I have to give away is I have a video. It's a very short video of 3 different games that you can play either in a group or solo. You can play these solo and it works. It helps to establish a lot of the things that we've been talking about. So I have that video, and I also have I teach 4 virtual improv classes a week, So not only do you get that video, but you also get a complimentary class to come and try it. And all you would need to do is go to laughterisconnection.com to go ahead and sign up and get that video and the invitation to the classes. Laughterisconnection.com.
Okay, Malcolm, how long do we need? Like, if we get the video today, how long do we need before we schedule the class?
You can schedule a class today.
Okay, so we could watch it and be prepared right
You
away.
can, yeah, you get the video right away, and you can also schedule the class.
Very good. Okay, good to know. Okay, Malcolm, next question. Are you ready for my questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm gonna fire away. Here we go.
Okay.
What's one thing everyone in your industry is doing that you think is complete BS, and why are they still doing it?
One thing that I think that people are doing is they are um they're not they're thinking they're thinking that improv, again, and I know I've said this, but really I think this is complete BS, is that people in the sales industry, in the business industry, in the coaching industry, they look at improv as something that is, it's not as essential as it is. They look at improv as, oh, that's nice. Those are games. That's nice. Improv is fun. Yeah, I like playing the improv games. They think of it as like an entertainment game thing that's very optional. Someday I can do it, maybe not, but this is as essential to you, to growing your sales conversations, to scaling your business, do divergent thinking. This is essential as getting your CRM. And so the fact that people still think that is, Coleen, what I think is BS.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's essential, but if you don't know, you don't know. And so you've got a lot of work cut out before you to
I do.
educate people on that.
I do a lot of advocating.
Good. Okay, question number 2. What's a mistake that you made that cost you serious money or time that you kept making anyways because you were too proud or too scared to admit it wasn't working?
Not showing up, hiding myself, not showing up and hiding myself, and not educating people about improv and the business connection. I think that because it was something that I myself got in that mindset where, yeah, improv is great. It's really good and it's entertaining, and it's a great thing for relationships, but it's not great for business, and business people aren't going to see the essential need of this. And so for a long time, I hid myself and I hid that message over and over again. I kept doing that. And because I did that, because I made that mistake, I've lost time. I've lost precious time.
Mm. I would agree with that. And I would think that it's so interesting that, and you're not alone in that. So many people hide for a long time. They're either not comfortable, not confident. They're afraid they're going to show up as a train wreck. And this is one of my favorite sayings. Somebody said to me, "So what? The world loves a good train wreck. Go out there and do it. If you're going to do it, just go all in on it, right?"
Yeah.
And I think that the world as a whole is a very gracious place. You have so many billions of people that need relationships and want real people, that it is a huge mistake to hide, no matter what's going on. And I've never been a hider. I remember when our family was going through a really hard time, and my daughter said, well, we started driving to church and I started crying. My daughter's like, "Oh, we're not going to church if you're crying." I said, Oh, yeah, we are, because we're real people. And if I were not crying, then this would not be affecting me. And hopefully I have it together by then. But if I'm in a situation where people don't understand or don't have compassion towards me, don't want to give me grace and the room to be human, then they need to leave. I don't need to leave. It doesn't make me wrong for showing up human, right? And so we need to show up with our mistakes and all, and just know that it's just a part of the process. There isn't a soul alive that is doing better than you that is going to look down on you for showing up in a human way.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are successful are cheering for you. And they're like, yeah, I was there. I understand. I've had friends that are there. Keep showing up, right? Not the people that are like, oh, why would you ever show up like that? Oh, get off camera, whatever. Those are people who haven't succeeded in life, who don't know what it takes, who haven't put in the hard work, and they have no place in being in judgment. And the door swings, they can leave, right? And so it is so important, so vitally important to show up for yourself and your business, but also for those showing up around you to cheer you on and support you, and also to give them courage to show up as their true self too.
Yep.
All right, question number 3. Are you ready, Malcolm? Here we go.
I'm ready. Bring it
If
on.
you could give only one piece of advice to somebody in your industry, but it would go completely against the grain, what would it be, and why is it worth the backlash?
So just to clarify, the advice that I'm giving is something that's going against the grain.
Yep,
Is that right?
yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
Oh, come on out with it.
Well, I guess so it depends with against the grain. I am I'm struggling with the against the grain part. So I guess I'm a comedian, and as a comedian, we are rebels. I'm a rebel, and so I go against the grain a lot with a lot of things. In business, I think and against, well, here I think of I can think of an example here.
Okay.
I'm a leader in Toastmasters International. I'm a president in one of my clubs, and in the club, there is, so I'm there's an evolving of the club, and Toastmasters International is one that has the history of Toastmasters International is this business, it's all about business speaking and preparing people for business speaking. And so there are certain topics, religion, sex, politics, that it's just not mentioned at all. And so I used basically, I invited one of those topics into a meeting, which is sort of going against the grain, challenging the status quo of Toastmasters. And I forgot the rest of your question, Coleen. I'm sorry. So I was just focused on that
Yeah,
part.
so that's the one thing the one piece of advice you'd give someone in your industry that would go against the grain. Why is it worth the backlash? Why do you feel strongly about it?
Okay, so I would say in general, so that was an example of what I did in Toastmasters. But in general, I would say go against the status quo. Whatever's happening in your industry, go against it. Make a decision, introduce something that is surprising, that is not within the status quo. And the important why you want to do that and why it's worth the backlash is because we won't grow without challenges. Just like Carl said earlier, if we have these arguments, well, challenges, I don't like arguments. Arguments has a bad connotation, negative connotation to it. If we have these challenges, if we're challenged, that's the only way that we continue to grow. That's the only way that I'm standing here right now doing what I'm doing right now today is because I was challenged with the Raya syndrome and with having to relearn how to walk and talk. And I met that challenge. And then all dealing with all the bullying, both external and internal. I met that challenge. And then with the challenge of stand-up comedy and becoming a stand-up comic, and how do you deal with that? I did that challenge. Thank you, Nicole. Nicole's accepting my challenge. All right, Nicole, I'm challenging you. And that's the only way that I'm doing what I'm doing today.
Okay, but that's the magic point, because that sets you apart.
Mm-hmm.
Going against the grain sets you apart, makes you unique, and makes people take notice of you. It's a huge business tool.
Right. And that's why it's worth making a mistake. It's worth going to a Toastmasters meeting and saying something that shocks everyone because it's challenging.
I agree. And it's also memorable. And so let me share this with you. I was in a business meeting one time when sex was brought up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was shocking. And it changed the way that I looked at my clients. And so I'm going to share that with you. It's one simple line. The way that you treat your spouse when you don't want to have sex with them is the way that they treat you when you want to have sex with them. Turn that around to your clients. The way that you treat your clients when you don't want to do business with them is the way that they treat you when you do want to do business with them.
Yeah. I love it. I love
And
it.
it's so much truth and so powerful. And when people started talking about that, they're like, what did you say about your spouse having sex? Yeah, we talked about that in public. And the thing is that there's just so much truth in it. And it goes back to, like you were saying, relationship building, actually listening and connecting and relationship building. And that is huge. So thank you so much, Malcolm. This has been amazing. I have thoroughly appreciated this. And if today's conversation has helped anyone see something differently or make a clearer decision or take a meaningful step forward, then this hour did exactly what it was supposed to do. Thank you so much, Malcolm.
Thank you, Coleen. I appreciated the time.
This has been wonderful. All right, everybody, have a good week.